Due to what most people know my channel for, Doom, God of War, Mortal Kombat if you go way back, you might think I don't like any slow-paced games. You'd be wrong. I certainly wouldn't consider Resident Evil 1 or Silent Hill fast-paced action games. I just recently talked about Braid, which is a puzzle game where you could be sitting there for half an hour just thinking about a solution. When the right game hits me in the right mood, the results are magical. And it's not that I don't care about story in games, it's more that I find that most games don't know how to properly integrate their story into their experience. They tend to force the story down your throat and deliver story points in very lazy ways, or the story is straight up boring and unimportant to the gameplay. I generally don't like games that have a bunch of empty walking around while characters talk and talk and talk. But you know what? I enjoyed The Last of Us 1 when I played it in 2013. I played it once. I think it's a fine single playthrough kind of game. I wouldn't say it's all great, the puzzle stuff is pretty bad, the cover-based shooting is lame, but I did enjoy the stealth sections and the resource management, the journey through the world, and especially the characters and the way the story was delivered. Except that long walking section in the beginning that could have been a simple cutscene. Now, A Plague Tale: Innocence is a game that's been on my radar for a while. I thought it looked interesting, and I always wanted to try it out. Recently, it became free on the Epic Games Store following the reveal trailer for A Plague Tale: Requiem at E3 this year. So it was finally time to hop into this dark world and see what it's all about. When the game starts, you're in a walking section. It's okay, I'm not going to start off the game in a bad mood. I know it's a slow-paced game going in. It's the intro, I'm fine with a slow intro for this kind of game. It's brief, you get to know the characters, you learn the mechanics, it's fine. Here you learn that you'll be picking up stones and using a slingshot. You do some target practice on some apples, and there's a pretty generous lock-on with your aim. Normally I wouldn't like that, but for the type of game this is, it works really well. It's not a combat game, it's more of a puzzle-solving and stealth game. A game about the decisions you make, not the accuracy of your shots. You learn that crouching in tall grass will hide your character from enemy vision as you're hunting an animal, and it feels very Horizon Zero Dawn. You then go to find your dog who ran away, as the environment around you starts to get darker. It's a really good creepy introduction to the darkness of this world, as you come across devoured animals and your dog dies right in front of you. This game does a great job of setting the mood. The story of this game succeeds based on its characters and delivery. Important story points are picked up by overhearing strangers' conversations and occasional cutscenes.
Everyone is on edge. Some were bitten during the night. Sounds like the English to me.
And what I really like is that it didn't feel like I was constantly being interrupted by this stuff. Characters aren't abrasively screaming, you don't have to read a bunch of memos to understand what's going on. It's all very simple, straightforward, and pleasant. I enjoyed all the character interactions. I was able to follow the story as it was slowly drip-fed to me through the progression of the game. We learned that the English soldiers are killing the French, and even biting them. Something weird is going on. This long opening chapter is completely free of gameplay, which was really testing my patience. But looking back on it, I do appreciate the setup. I just think it could have been a little shorter. There's a lot of just wandering around and listening to people talk. A lot of this could have been delivered in a cutscene. Once the English raid your village, you slowly escape with your little brother, seeing all the helpers of the house brutally murdered by English soldiers, saying they serve a higher power. The intense situation makes the actual lack of gameplay a lot more bearable because what's happening around you is so shocking. Your mother helps you escape, and this is where you learn to use stealth to avoid soldiers. Stones can be thrown against metal objects to create a distraction. You can use stones to actually kill a soldier if you feel you have to. And I love that Amicia actually reacts horrified because she's just committed murder. You escape the village, and as you're traveling through the world, you learn that they are actually looking for your brother, because he contains some kind of darkness in him that your parents were trying to get out of him by working with alchemists. You'll spend the game escorting him through the dangers ahead, meeting new characters that join you. So eventually you're running around in a group of 4, which is something I personally haven't seen before in a game. Thankfully, your little brother Hugo is not an annoying little prick. I mean, he is sometimes. He throws a fit in Chapter 2, and if you go too far from him, he'll start freaking out. But for the most part, Hugo is really cute, and the dynamic between him and Amicia is entertaining and charming. Fortunately, we are not dealing with another Atreus situation.
Whatever.
The other characters you meet are also friendly, and I came to really enjoy the dialogue between them. The world of A Plague Tale: Innocence is a bleak one, but it complements the gameplay, and the pleasant, at times humorous character interactions provide a counterbalance to the depressing surroundings. Sometimes I found myself horrified by the sight of 100 corpses, but then I'd smile at something Hugo said, or hearing the two girls laughing as they're figuring out a puzzle together. I didn't find myself feeling miserable even though I was in such a miserable place. But Mayo, didn't you just make a video complaining about the depressing world of The Ascent? And now you're praising the depressing world of this game? Right, but that's what I'm saying. Context matters. When your game is going for fun, in-your-face gameplay, a depressing world may end up contradicting that tone and even detracting from the fun. When your game is going for a slow, thoughtful gameplay experience, a sad and somber world may actually complement that. And while the Ascent's depressing dystopian setting doesn't necessarily have to result in a depressing overall tone, what drags it down is how, on top of the depressing look, every character is a miserable asshole. A Plague Tale: Innocence juxtaposes its dreary plague-ridden locations with likable, sympathetic characters that make you smile, and a sense of inspiring adventure, so you never feel like you're being consumed by sadness. If the characters in this game were pessimistic and unlikable, you bet your ass I'd be here complaining about how depressing this world is as a result. The locations in this game are at times breathtaking. Just when I'd start getting bored of stone and grass, I'd walk into a new place that just left me in awe. It's crazy that this game wasn't made by a major AAA studio because it sure looks like it sometimes. Character models may not always have top-of-the-line movement and lip syncing, but they look good, and excellent voice acting makes them very believable. The best animation in the game is when you hit a soldier in the head with a stone. It's one of the most brutal things I've ever seen in a game. It really does look like it would if you were to hit someone in the head with a slingshot. The blood, the way the characters just fly back, it's so realistic that I wince every time I do it. And then I laugh. This guy's gonna get fucking killed. Oh! The gameplay is broken into two parts, which sometimes come together. The first part is stealth, sneaking around soldiers and using different tools to distract or kill them. Some soldiers have helmets, so you can't kill them with stones. You could throw a pot to distract them and then move around, and eventually you'll get more weapons that you can craft in-game after you meet the son of a famous alchemist who teaches you new formulas. One weapon melts through armor, so you can shoot it at a guard's head, and he'll have to take off his helmet, leaving himself vulnerable. The guards are not very smart. They'll see you briefly, and you can hide in the grass, and they just forget you. Some guards just stand in one place endlessly, so you can walk behind them with no threat of being seen. I'm a little torn on this, because part of me wishes the AI were smarter, but another part of me thinks it's okay because the level design is pretty well structured around their limited intelligence, so there's still a sense of danger, especially since if they catch you, they will kill you. And there's the added challenge of making sure your brother makes it through with you, leaving him behind for a moment so you can go do something risky, and then calling him to your position when things are safe. So I don't really mind the simple AI because the game takes that into consideration with the layout of its stealth sections. Checkpoints are also well placed. Since you're playing in a slow, stealthy way, you may be moving through a dangerous area for 10 minutes, and then you get caught. And in a lot of games you'd be forced to do the entire section over, but this game surprised me with considerate checkpoints that made me feel like I'd earned them. Starting at the halfway point of a long stealth section helped keep my spirits up as I pushed forward. The people who accompany you can be used to solve problems. You can send Hugo through small openings so he can hit a switch, tell your buddies to pull levers while you head to a new area. It's simple, but it helps add some variety. The other part of the gameplay is the rats. What everyone knows this game for. Fucking rats everywhere. They aren't in every chapter, but when you are dealing with them, the game turns into more of a puzzle game. The rats are scared of bright lights, so you'll be lighting torches, carrying flaming sticks, dropping luminosa to scare them away. Sometimes there's a neat trick like setting fire to a windmill and running with the fire as you escape to safety. The puzzles, however, are a mixed bag. Sometimes the game trusts you enough to be in an area with no idea what to do, looking around for a few minutes until you find the answer. Those are the best parts. But more often than not, Amicia or another character will say something that guides your attention to the answer. I would be okay with a button that asked for a hint, for casual players, or even for myself when I couldn't figure something out and I lost my patience. But it's really a bummer when you walk into a new area and 5 seconds later your character says, "I could light that lamp to clear away. I want to figure this stuff out myself." Like here, all the rats come in after I save the alchemist kid and they're blocking the door. Right away he tells me to use the pigs that are hanging on the wall to distract the rats. Well, thanks a lot, game. Can you give me more than 5 seconds to look around and come up with an answer? The solutions are generally pretty fun, even if the game does basically direct you towards those solutions. The spectacle is entertaining regardless. There are some really crappy puzzle sections though. Having to pull switches and slowly push boxes across the ground really sucks. I'm not thinking about solutions, I'm just waiting for things to be over. This section with the braziers and the wheels that push them into rats to force them into pits, well, it was cool at first, but you spend way too much time here just lighting braziers and telling your partner to push them. You're not exploring, you're not thinking about what you need to do, you're just running from point to point hitting the buttons. There's too much of this pretend gameplay in here, and it results in several chapters of this game being a real slog. Thankfully, there is good character interaction, so it wasn't so bad I wanted to turn it off.
No, no, no! Loose the dragons! Come on, back off, you bastards! Retreat before Amicia the Amazon and Melly the Fury! What? Melly the Fury? I told you didn't know me.
Where the game gets brilliant is when it combines both parts together, and you're dealing with multiple types of soldiers, armored, shielded, torch-carrying, and there's rats everywhere. Your mind starts putting together complex thought processes. Maybe we throw a ceramic pot to attract a torch-carrying guard into a rat-infested area, shoot a stone to break his lamp, and watch him get devoured by the rats. There's multiple solutions. You could try to sneak past everyone, you can take them on with your weapons, which are limited, you can use the environment. I like this section here with an armored guard in the hallway and another unarmored guard on the right at a desk. I explored the area to the left, which revealed a box of armor. I tossed a stone to attract the armored guard, went back to his original post, and turned this lamp so the rats were now free to enter this area if they want. And when he came back, I threw a chemical on him that attracts rats, and he got eaten and I was free to pass. You gotta be careful when you're distracting multiple guards. Though the AI in this game isn't that great, you cannot trick groups of enemies with a single distraction. If you make a noise, they'll send one guy to check it out. They won't all go, so getting past a group of enemies isn't always so easy. You can upgrade your slingshot, ammo capacity, chemical effect duration, etc. at occasional benches. It reminds me a lot of how Dead Space handled its upgrades. As you find different crafting materials throughout the world, you can use them on these upgrades. But the materials are also used to craft weapons you'll need for puzzles and to defend yourself. It's a cool system, but it doesn't really put the strain on resources that I was hoping for. I very rarely found myself in a situation where I was low on resources and had to make a tough choice about what I was going to use. It would be cool if there were some kind of extra game setting that reduced the frequency of materials, because for as awesome as it is that there's different ways to solve situations in this game, it's undercut by the abundance of materials that sometimes allow you to just do one thing instead of forcing you to think about multiple solutions. If there's 5 guards and I have 10 stones, well, I can just kill them all. It would be better to have only 2 stones, a pot that I can distract with, and 1 stealth kill chemical, so I'd have to decide when and where to use each option. The crafting system is fairly well handled. Normally I find crafting systems to be bloated and cumbersome, but A Plague Tale Innocence crafting system never feels like a chore. You don't have to go through your menu and look at 20 different kinds of materials to determine what you can make. You just pick things up as you go, and if you have enough materials to upgrade something at a bench, you do it. If you need to craft a weapon on the fly, you just go to the weapon and hit craft, and it's done. It shows you how much it requires, how much you have, and you hit one button. It's as simple as that. Very similar to The Last of Us. It's definitely a step above the crafting system of, say, Alien Isolation, where you gotta select the individual materials needed to craft something, and most of the stuff isn't needed anyway because there's barely any gameplay, and the crafting menu is really ugly. Details like that make the difference between the feelings of, okay, I need this item, I'll craft it real quick, and, I need this item again, and now I have to craft it. A Plague Tale Innocence added pressure on crafting materials by requiring them also for upgrades actually makes you think a bit about whether you're gonna upgrade something or save those materials to craft weapons later. A little bit. It's not perfect, but it's also not annoying. And the whole crafting aspect fits the world of this game perfectly. Something else that makes the crafting system engaging is the regular introduction of new alchemical weapons that change the way puzzle and stealth sections function. Learning how to make a flaming slingshot was something I didn't expect, and opened my eyes to the possibilities in the game. You'll learn how to make Luminosa to scare away rats, Odorous that attracts rats to its location, Somnum to kill an enemy in secret, Extinguish to put a fire out and draw rats to an enemy. So the crafting system regularly finds ways to stay fresh as new abilities are found and new puzzle solutions are presented. As you go to all these new locations, you'll learn more about the world and the story in very natural ways, and you'll hear some gorgeous music. The soundtrack is one of the best parts of this game, and if it weren't so good, the poorly paced sections would be a lot less tolerable. Because the game is an uneven experience. I'll play one chapter and say I love the game, and then I'll play a chapter that's a bunch of walking around and scripted events and I'm bored to tears. It's just not paced very well at times. That's probably the biggest negative for me. Several chapters where there's just no engaging gameplay at all, and the game only survives because of its strong character interactions and interesting world. These sections are very bad for replay value. I want to play this game a second time, but thinking about those sections makes me not want to. But that's okay, some games are just good for a single playthrough. Later in the game, I think the story gets less interesting as it starts revealing who the antagonists are and what they want. And that's a shame because I was really getting into the whole world of this game and what's going on with Hugo. And there are some pretty lame sections of just running down a path while you toss fire at tornadoes of rats. Really no thought involved. It's a nice spectacle, but there's really not much going on. And it's followed by a long pseudo-stealth section where you play as Hugo. It plays better than the Sherry section of the RE2 remake, and it delivers some important story details. And I was actually kinda into it because it follows a section that had a good puzzle and an action set piece, but it overstays its welcome. It was like half an hour or more, and it doesn't have any interesting aspects like Amicia's stealth sections where she has all her tools and ways to distract and dispose of enemies. It's just a bunch of hiding and walking, and it kinda sucks. I've heard this game referred to as a walking simulator, probably because of sections like this, but considering everything else the game has to offer, I think it's way too dismissive to just call this a walking sim. When I think walking sim, I think Firewatch. Games where you really are just walking and taking in the story. A Plague Tale Innocence has moments like that, but large parts of the game involve stealth, light combat, puzzle solving, decision making, resource management, crafting. So I'd consider it more of a story-based adventure game. Some of the later puzzle sections really do require you to look around and think about how you're going to get through, and what combination of tools you're going to use. Does the game need more of it? Yes, but the gameplay it does offer is enough to make the longer story sections feel earned.
Mostly.
Watch out. Guards.
It's hideout.
Darlis sent anyone out to search for you? That's weird.
What is it? I'll try to catch you.
The cart.
Come on me.
Good job.
He won't be getting up anytime soon. Trust me.
Hey! What's that? You should have hidden, idiots! Back!
I don't want to show the final boss or the ending for the people who are interested in checking this game out, but I will give my thoughts on them. The boss is cool visually, but the fight isn't very fun, though I don't know what more they could have done to make an epic battle in a game with these mechanics. It's simple, it's not very difficult, but it's also kind of annoying, and I was underwhelmed by the ending. However, the post-credits epilogue was really nice. It gives you an idea of what the world is like for these characters in the aftermath, and it leaves me wanting to see what's in store for them in the future. If you play this game, I suggest using the Immersive HUD, but not at first. Play the first 4 chapters with the standard HUD so you get a grasp on how the game is played, and then switch to Immersive. This game's tone really benefits from not having the video gaming HUD on the screen. And one last thing. Video game developers, I'm talking to all of you. Can you stop making parts of games where you take away the ability to sprint? Why can't I run at full speed when I'm in the village, or walking through the castle, or the church? Do you think that letting the player sprint in these parts will take away from the serious artistic tone? It's a bunch of BS and it's frustrating. So yeah, I recommend A Plague Tale: Innocence for the most part, and I'm honestly excited for the sequel next year. I'll be there day one. Thanks for watching, sub and like and all that stuff, and I'll see you next time.